It is written, "By the seventh day God completed his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work." Genesis 2 verse 2. The sentence is well known. It is repeated, read, sometimes recited without pause. And yet, a simple question arises, almost unsettling in its simplicity. Did God, creator of heaven, earth, time, and matter, truly need to rest? The universe comes into being through his word. The stars ignite without effort. Nothing in the First Testament suggests divine fatigue, limitation, or breathlessness. So where does this image come from? A God who stops to recover his strength? The disturbance does not come from the biblical text itself. It comes neither from Genesis nor from Hebrew thought. It comes from a discrete, almost invisible shift, the shift of translation. For behind the expression "God rested" lies an idea far deeper, more structuring, even cosmic, than what our modern language allows us to hear. On the channel Chokhmah, we will slow down, return to the context, listen to the text according to its own logic, and understand why, in the Bible, the seventh day is not a pause, but an act. To enter this forgotten meaning, we must first place this sentence back into its original biblical framework. That is what we will do now. Before examining the words, we must understand the architecture of the narrative itself. Chapter 1. Biblical context. The story of creation opens without noise, without struggle, without resistance. In the First Testament, God does not shape the world with his hands. He speaks. God said, and it was so. The formula returns, simple, steady, almost liturgical. Light appears, the waters are separated, the earth brings forth. Each act is ordered, controlled, without tension or expenditure of energy. There is no mythological battle here, no chaos to be subdued, unlike the ancient accounts of the peoples surrounding Israel. Biblical creation is not a victory torn by force, but an ordering brought about by the Word. Nothing in this text suggests physical effort. Nothing evokes exhaustion. Nothing prepares the idea of a God who would need to recover. And this is where an obvious theological problem emerges. The God of the Bible is presented as all-powerful. He is eternal, outside of time. He is not physical. He is not subject to the biological limits of man. It is written, "The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not grow weary or tired." Isaiah 40, verse 28. The text is clear. The Bible itself excludes any idea of divine fatigue. Therefore, a calm and rigorous conclusion imposes itself. If God does not grow tired, then the word rest cannot refer to physical rest. The problem is not theological, it is linguistic. To understand what the text truly says, we must now listen to the language in which it was written. Chapter 2. Analysis of the Hebrew text. In most modern and classical English translations, we read, "And God finished on the seventh day his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made." Genesis 2, verse 2. This wording has endured through the centuries. It is repeated in the King James Version, the New International Version, the English Standard Version, the New American Standard Bible, the Revised Standard Version, the New Revised Standard Version, and many others. In more than 30 translations, the same verb appears again and again: rested. At first reading, the meaning seems obvious. perhaps too obvious. As we have already seen, the biblical framework excludes any notion of divine fatigue. This leads to a question, not out of polemics, but out of fidelity to the text itself. What does this verse actually say in its original language? Let us now listen to the Hebrew text in its entirety.
ויכל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה, וישבות ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה.
It is here that the decisive word appears. The Hebrew verb is vayishbot. It comes from the root shavat, a word whose semantic range is precise, stable, and consistent throughout Scripture. It means to cease, to stop, to bring an activity to an end, to refrain from acting. It does not mean to sleep. It does not mean to recover. It describes no physiological process whatsoever. The image is simple and concrete. An activity comes to a halt, not because it is exhausted, but because it is completed. This is exactly what some translators perceived, those more attentive to meaning than to habit. Andrei Cheraki renders the passage as follows: He ceases on the seventh day from all his work. The wording is deliberately rough, almost unsettling, but it is faithful. To cease working does not mean to rest physically. It means to suspend an action. Other translations move in the same direction, though more discreetly. The ecumenical translation speaks of stopping. Segint 21 refers to bringing to an end. The annotated Bible of Neuchatel uses the word cease. All converge on the same conclusion. God does not enter a phase of recovery. He brings the creative act to its completion. This distinction becomes especially clear when we compare this text with another foundational passage. We read, 6 days you shall do your work, but on the seventh day you shall cease, so that your ox and your donkey may rest, and the son of your servant woman and the foreigner may recover their breath. Exodus 23, verse 12. Here, the Hebrew text is remarkably precise. When the verse speaks of the human being and says, "You shall cease," it uses the same verb as in Genesis, Shavat. Man is called to interrupt his activity, to put an end to productive action. This is not yet bodily rest, but a voluntary cessation of doing. Then, within the same sentence, the text deliberately shifts register. When it says that the ox and the donkey rest, Hebrew uses a different verb, venafash. This word means to catch one's breath, to recover respiration, to regain physical strength after exertion. The distinction is clear. It is intentional. It is embedded in the very structure of the verse. Man shavat, he ceases. The animals venafash, they recover. If shavat meant to rest physically, the verse would be redundant, even incoherent. But the Torah never confuses levels of meaning. When it speaks of bodily rest, it names it explicitly. When it speaks of the cessation of activity, it uses shavat. The coherence then becomes complete. In Genesis, God does not rest as a creature does, vayishbot, because the work is complete. He does not enter recovery, but stability. God does not grow weary, man does. That is why God vayishbot and man rests. And if the seventh day is not divine fatigue but a voluntary cessation, then the Sabbath carries a spiritual meaning that goes far beyond the idea of simple rest. Chapter 3. The Spiritual Meaning of the Sabbath. The Sabbath does not imitate divine fatigue. It does not reproduce a need for recovery. It reveals a deeper truth. Man rests because he is limited. God, however, establishes a time set apart. The seventh day is not a biological pause applied to God. It is a boundary placed within the flow of time, a voluntary cessation that gives meaning to everything that comes before it. A cessation that declares creation complete, that man is neither its master nor its corrector, but its guardian. It is written, God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because on that day he ceased from all his work which he had created. Genesis 2, verse 3. The text does not speak of recovery. It speaks of sanctification. A Hebrew expression says, kadosh, set apart, separated, consecrated. The Sabbath is not an empty day. It is a different day. The biblical message then becomes clear. The world is complete. It does not need to be improved by man, but received with gratitude. The Sabbath says, stop endless production, stop permanent domination, stop the illusion that man is the center. To cease working on that day is not to withdraw from the world. It is to acknowledge that it does not belong to us. But the Sabbath is not limited to a commandment inscribed in creation. The writings of the New Testament expand its scope. It is written that there remains a rest for the people of God, and that the one who enters it rests from his works. Hebrews chapter 4, verses 1 to 11. The text no longer speaks only of a day in the week. It speaks of fulfillment. It is no longer merely a weekly rhythm, but a promise of eternity. The Sabbath thus becomes a foreshadowing, not of inactivity, but of peace, not of an imposed halt, but of promised fullness. Like a breath that suspends time, it invites us, even now, to taste the peace of the world to come. Thus, the Sabbath links the beginning and hope, creation completed and rest yet to come. God ceases from creating so that man may learn to cease believing himself a creator. Behind a translation made too quickly, an entire vision of time, of God, and of biblical hope is revealed. And what if the Sabbath were, above all, an invitation to live differently? Conclusion. Let us return to what is essential. The Hebrew text does not say that God grew weary. It describes neither effort, nor exhaustion, nor recovery. It says something else. It says that God ceased the creative act. The idea of rest in a physical sense does not come from the biblical text, but from approximate translations, inherited from human reflexes projected onto God. Returning to the Hebrew language is not an exercise in erudition reserved for a few. It is a safeguard against anthropomorphism, an elevation of our understanding of God. God did not rest because he was tired. He ceased creating because everything was accomplished. And this logic runs throughout all of Scripture. When God declares that a work is finished, there is nothing to add, nothing to correct, nothing to complete. It is written, it is finished. John 19, verse 30. As in creation, when God says that it is accomplished, man is not invited to intervene, but to acknowledge. On the Hakma channel, to understand the words is to recover meaning, and to recover meaning is to learn to stand in the right place.